Hello everypony, I am Critical Thought and welcome to my review of Spike at your service. I've mentioned before how Dave Polsky is one of my least favorite writers on the show. He brought us too many Pinkie Pies, which was annoying, Over a Barrel, which was bland, and Feeling Pinky Keen, which was unnecessarily controversial. Can he possibly rise above his failures in my eyes? Let's see if his newest episode, Spike at Your Service, will finally be his saving grace. Our episode begins with Twilight granting Spike the day off from helping her with chores, since Princess Celestia has sent Twi some books to read, presumably as homework. Is it just me, or do the writers feel like they can't have a Spike episode without keeping Twilight preoccupied somehow? Maybe it's because they feel like Twi would have to be parenting Spike if she was present when he got into some of the shenanigans that he normally does when she's not around. And they either don't want to shift the pseudo-brother-sister dynamic between them into a parent-child dynamic, or they are afraid of alienating their target audience who don't want to see a character they enjoy getting punished. I imagine children who watch MLP don't enjoy being scolded for the naughty things they do, and it seems reasonable that they wouldn't want to see one of the characters they like getting scolded either. In regards to the former potential reasoning of why Twi is never around to see Spike's misdeeds, is that the writers aren't so much worried about the dynamic between them, but that they want Spike to learn the lesson on his own. They keep Twi outside of his narrative for a similar reason, to avoid her having to act like a parent, but perhaps it's more about Spike, and by proxy, the younger audience, learning his lesson by himself rather than having that lesson taught to him. Regardless, this episode is already following the story beats of Just for Sidekicks, and that's not a good sign. Theme. So after realizing that his list of things he wanted to do on his day off didn't take nearly as long as he expected them to, Spike wanders around Ponyville for something fun to do. It's then that he noticed a hot air balloon that was offering rides, strangely the same one from the opening theme, which I was under the impression belonged to Twilight. Something tells me a certain corporation was behind this. Perhaps to market something relating to this hot air balloon.
It's Twilight Sparkle's balloon! The new twinkling balloon can take your ponies anywhere.
Like Applejack's barn.
Twilight Sparkle loves balloon rides.
Wow, our balloon really twinkles. That was the best balloon ride ever.
New My Little Pony Balloon Barn and other ponies. Each sold separately. Colors will vary.
Yep, that would explain this complete disregard for continuity. On top of this completely contrived product placement, why not go for a ×2 multiplier on this sin and also make it an integral plot device? Yeah! Capitalism at work, my friends. Behold! Spike chases after the runaway product placement plot device, but eventually catches it and safely secures it inside the Everfree forest. However, I can't stay too mad at it, because it gave the animators the excuse to include one of the most awesome and badass creatures in the show, Timberwolves. Not only are the Timberwolves amazingly designed, but they, in fact, have a completely different animation style than the rest of the show. While the show is normally rendered in Adobe Flash, these Timberwolves are rendered in full CGI. This really makes them pop out on screen, as the way they move and the way they contrast with the background is unlike anything we have ever seen in this show. I'm gonna tell you right now, these Timberwolves will definitely play a role in how I rate this episode, because they are just so well done and unique that I just marvel at them every time I see them in this episode. So as Spike is being cornered by the Timberwolves, Applejack Ex Machina comes to save the day. She distracts the Timberwolves away from Spike, giving him a window to escape. As forced as this rescue is, I have to admit that AJ going total beast mode on the Timberwolves is entertaining as hell. Spike then becomes so grateful to AJ for saving his life that he walks her home and then tries to take on AJ's chores for her. Applejack is reluctant at first, but eventually caves in and lets Spike go help Applebloom clean... Wait, is that really his name? Mr. Pigington? I can't decide if that's hilarious or stupid. Wait, Mr. Pigington is a girl? Okay, yeah, that's officially stupid.
Applejack, is it okay if I get going? I don't want to be late for my Crusaders meeting. We're getting fitted for water skis.
Aw, man. Why can't we see the CMC water skiing? That sounds way more fun than what I'm currently watching. After Spike finishes cleaning Mr. Pigington with Applebloom, he begs AJ for more work to do. AJ starts to show her discomfort with Spike doing chores for her, but she reluctantly respects Spike's plea for more work and has him help her and Granny Smith bake some pies. It becomes apparent pretty quickly that Spike isn't that great with some tasks, as the pie baking turns into more of a mess than a delectable dessert. When Applejack tries to husk Spike away after he does more harm than good, Spike reveals why he's been so persistent to help Applejack and her family. He pulls out a little business card and declares that he has a moral code he lives by called the Spike the Dragon Code, and that the code states that he owes the rest of his life to anyone that saves his, and must serve them till the end of his days. Spike then goes to break the news to Twilight about how he will no longer be serving her and instead serving Applejack. Twilight is so engrossed in her reading that she doesn't even pay attention to what Spike is saying and just mutters at the end of his sentences to make it seem like she's listening. Spike, thinking that Twilight doesn't care that much if he leaves, walks out of the library with tears in his eyes. The next day, Applejack shows more irritation and concern about Spike being her servant. But once again, Spike tells her that he must follow his code, citing that he won't be a noble dragon anymore if he disobeys it. AJ looks around for things that Spike can do, but doesn't see anything that Spike won't inevitably screw up. So she comes up with something on the fly, and has Spike deliver a botched pie he baked to Rarity. I gotta admit, this scene in Rarity's house where she tries Spike's pie is one of the best pieces of humor in this episode, and it's all done with minimal dialogue. The actions and the situations provide all the laughs. It's certainly a highlight of the episode.
You even look good when you're chewing. Who looks good when they're chewing?
Once Spike has left the room, AJ details what has been going on to Rarity. Rarity seems thrilled about the idea of someone serving her forever, and once Rainbow Dash flies in, she shares a similar opinion. AJ tells them, though, about how uncomfortable she feels with Spike as her servant.
However did you come up with that ingeniously woven, intricate plotline?
Also, Rarity would make an excellent fanfic reviewer. AJ says she doesn't know how to make Spike stop serving her, so Dashie makes the suggestion of making Spike want to quit by giving him an extra hard task to complete. She does this by having Spike build a tower of rocks for her so she can practice her flying, but is unaware of Spike's level of determination, and he ends up completing the task. Afterwards, Fluttershy comes by and suggests that AJ pretend she doesn't have anything for Spike to do, which she tries to no avail. Spike becomes distraught without a task to complete for Applejack. This scene spawns so many Rule 34 jokes. I'm just gonna let it speak for itself.
Maybe Applejack needs help realizing what she needs help with. Like, maybe your back itches.
That does feel good.
Applejack, unsure of what to do about Spike, goes to Twilight's house to seek her help. Initially, Twilight doesn't pay her any mind either, being too caught up in her reading, but that is until AJ takes advantage of one of Twilight's weaknesses, OCD. Although it is a bit weird that Twilight notices that the inkpot has moved from behind her back, I do like that the writers use this method to have Applejack get Twilight's attention. Lesson 0 showed that Twi has a tendency to stress out about things, and it's been kinda subtly hinted at that she has OCD, but has never been explicitly stated before this episode. In fact, there have been plenty of times before where Twi should have been more stressed out about things not being in their rightful place. However, showing Twi has this weakness does reinforce some of the aspects of her character, and gives others who have this disorder a relatable character. I'm glad it made its way into the show. Once AJ tells Twi of the situation, she is utterly shocked. She tells AJ that there is only one way to fulfill the debt that Spike owes her, and that's for Spike to save Applejack's life. Applejack comes up with a plan to pretend to be chased by a timber wolf and get her hoof caught in some rocks. Spike will help free her hoof from the rocks, effectively saving her life and nulling out the life debt. Having no time to rehearse before Spike comes along, the main six put their plan into action, but Spike eventually realizes it's all an act, noticing that the fake Timberwolf doesn't smell like a Timberwolf. I'm also really glad that the writers didn't play Spike for an idiot, unlike some male characters in this show. Snips and snails. Older generations of MLP and other shows with lower level of quality would have expected Spike, and probably the audience as well, to fall for this blatant and lazy attempt of trickery. But not FIM. It treats its characters and its audience with respect. I know this is pretty much common knowledge at this point, but I thought it'd be good to point this out and remind everyone that MLP is a smart show. Just then, Spike begins to smell a Timberwolf. Thinking that this was still an attempt at fooling him, he isn't scathed. But it turns out to be the real deal this time, as several Timberwolves come charging out of the Everfree Forest. Applejack seemingly destroys them with some nearby rocks, but then accidentally gets her hoof stuck in between some rocks for real, and the Timberwolves begin reforming into a Mega Timberwolf. AJ begs Spike to leave her, but he stays loyal to his Dragon Code, vowing to save Applejack, and he throws a small rock into the mouth of the Mega Timberwolf, causing it to choke to death and explode. Am I the only one that thinks this is kind of dark for this kind of show? I mean, I know the ponies just straight up obliterated Sombra in the season premiere, but this seems like a worse way to go to me. Just saying. Applejack then gives a heartfelt speech to Spike about how she knows his Dragon Code is important, but she would be more comfortable with, as she puts it, her moral code of that's just what friends do for each other, and promises him she won't think any less of him for not obeying his Dragon Code. We close out the episode showing Spike back with Twilight, helping her finish her reading by being really eager to provide her with a lamp. So, what did I think of Spike at Your Service? I have to say this is one of the better Spike episodes in the show's history. It gives Spike agency over himself instead of just being the comic relief. We get to learn a little bit more about him and see how he plays off of Applejack, which turns out to be a better pairing than expected. We get an excuse to see the most awesome looking creatures in the show. Well, second most awesome looking creatures in the show. It also has a good, relatable message that can be applied to a lot of friendships. I know there have been times with my friends where I felt obligated to repay them for their favors, and sometimes it's been stressful on me to fulfill those personal obligations. This episode is a good reference point when faced with that kind of dilemma. Overall, Spike at Your Service deserves a rewatch it rating from me. The pacing is a bit off, as we spend a little bit too much time showing how uncomfortable AJ is with Spike helping her. It has a weaker first half, and there are a few other minor things in this episode to nitpick about, but none of it ruins the enjoyability of this episode. Dave Polsky has finally done it. He has made an episode I thoroughly enjoy, and one worthy of subsequent viewings as one of the gems of Season 3. As always, I am Critical Thought, and I will see you all next week, apparently. Yikes. That Season 6 premiere kinda snuck up on me. I figured I'd be way farther in my reviews by then. Well, onward to Season 6, I guess. I'm still going to be covering the older episodes as well, but I'll do them alongside the new ones. Perhaps I will also start doing the Equestria Girls films sooner than I anticipated as well, since Season 6 is practically on top of us at this point, and EQG4 isn't that far off. Until then, remember, never stop thinking critically.